Welcome to our Helios Trial Orchard. We have two orchards, one of them in East Kent and another one in the West Midlands. This one is Heritage near Newent in Gloucester. Helios is an acronym standing for the Hutchinson's Enhanced Light Interception Orchard System, and these orchards lead on heavily from the work of Stuart Tustin, who identified that though our single row spindle orchards are highly productive in historic terms, actually they only intercept about 60% of the sunlight falling on them, and their ultimate yield is a function of the sunlight which they capture and convert into sugars. So we're starting to try and investigate different tree configurations to improve the amount of light interception and ultimately improve their yield from the orchards that can ultimately be achieved. 3 years ago we planted a range of configurations, generally based around planar canopies with a high density of vertical fruiting stems, and we are looking for simplicity of management and robot readiness as well. We anticipate limitations with picking labour, and so we're trying to look at planar canopy robot ready orchard configurations. I'm standing in front of our PV block, our photovoltaic array. As you drive around the country, you'll have seen PV farms. The rows will always be orientated east-west and leant backwards, and that's exactly what we've done with these trees. The thinking is that we can maximise sunlight capture with a planar canopy. It's configured in this way, and the maths tells you that you will capture double the amount of sunlight that you would capture with a similarly configured row orientated north-south. The question is whether the leaves can actually utilise the intense sunlight in the afternoon in the way that a photovoltaic panel would. These trees were planted 3 years ago, and we won't know the answer to the question for another 7 years yet.
This is a centrifugal pruning system. Instead of pruning trees into a planar canopy, with this system we're trying to grow the tree in a completely different way. Normally we grow the fruit very close to the trunk so that the nutrients can get to the fruit adequately. On this system we grow the apples further away and we rub off the first 30 centimetres of growth. This allows a shaft of light to come down through the mature tree to give good illumination of all the fruit. So far, trials in France have shown very good yields, a reduction in pruning and thinning costs. If you plant an apple orchard where a previous one has grown, you often get something called apple replant disease. This is where the trees don't establish very well and they are stunted for the first few years of growth. These particular trees have been grown on the rootstock Geneva 11, or G11 for short, and it's specially designed to ameliorate these impacts. They were planted this spring just before the heat wave, and you can see they've actually established remarkably well. The key to it is at the ground level in the rootstock, and what we've done here is we've actually cut off all the roots in a system called string fellowing to push them through a membrane. The membrane is here to simulate how trees might be grown should we lose the use of herbicides.
This configuration is inspired by the V system pear orchards. This one is on M9 rootstock, planted at just 40 centimetres between the trees. They're alternate leaning to form the V. Obviously it's an expensive system to establish, but it's just in its third leaf now and the yield looks very promising. It's another of our family of planar system tree configurations, and we think that the build-up yield looks very attractive.
This is the M26 V spindles. What we've done here is to plant a tree and then try to grow 4 limbs from that tree to create a spindle system with the same density as the M9 system. Unfortunately, because the trees were small, we couldn't use weed killer in the first year, and that following winter the rabbits hammered them. So it's taken a couple of seasons to get it back into growth. We're hoping that in 3 years' time they'll look very similar to the M9 spindles. Most commercial orchards are now planted on the M9 rootstock at high density using an expensive trellis work system. What we're investigating here is using the M116 rootstock with its extensive root system to enable a slightly lower density but a much cheaper support structure which can be removed after 5 years.
This plot is inspired by Stuart Tustin in New Zealand, and we call it our 116 laydown plot, so it's on a 116 rootstock, fairly vigorous. We're growing the stem up vertically to the height of the top of the rabbit guard, and then We're running the main stem up at a height of just about 20 degrees above the horizontal, and from that laid down stem we're then growing 4 vertical stems per tree. So our space between the rows is 1.8 metres, and that's giving us a plant population of 3,700 trees a hectare, so approaching 15,000 stems per hectare. We're hoping to hang 10 kilograms of fruit from each of these stems, so we're looking at a yield of 150 tonnes a hectare. We're anticipating that the trees, once they're established, will be very quiet and easy to manage because all of the fruit will be borne very close to each of the vertical stems. It's a planar canopy, it's robot ready, and the light interception and quality that we're seeing from them we think is very attractive.
This is the Magnum tree. It comes from Carolus and is patented by Kuhn before his death. Now this is a 3-year tree, so it's quite tall, but the branches are very short on delivery. This means that you get a very rapid build up in yield, and whereas the rest of the Helios trial is in year 3, this is actually only its 2nd leaf, so it's very impressive. This is a new variety from Carolus. It's a coded variety, and only 20 trees in the country, 10 planted here at Heriges and 10 in Kent at the Helios site there. They were only planted last spring and already they're coming into crop quite nicely. We harvested all but this tree on the 11th of August, so it's an early maturing apple. It's crisp, juicy, slight acidity and a bit of aromatic. It keeps well in the cold store and it's a very promising variety for the future. In the Helios orchard we've used a mixture of malus pollinators and this one, which is Jester. Jester is a cross of Golden Delicious and James Grieve, and the pollen tubes grow at very low temperature, meaning that in a poor spring it is a particularly effective pollinator.
We hope that's given you an insight into our Helios orchard project. As you can see, it's a work in progress, and next year we're hoping to have some open days, and we'd very much like to welcome you to come along and see the work that we're doing.